All right. Let's go ahead and start back up. Before you guys start working on the activity, I just want to make sure. Excuse me. We go back to the PowerPoint. From our server, we have covered the listening portion, right? We covered the parsing. We are parsing the URLs. We know exactly which one it is. Based on this parsing, we are handling the routes. Where does what HTML needs to be served based on what the URL is, and then we did the send HTML as well. All right. Okay. So we did the HTML part. We'll do the JSON. At some point, we'll do the JSON as well, but we have covered at least the 4 parts of it. Okay. And then before the end of the class, I'll show you the post one as well. Okay. Just going back to our code, and this is what we did with the HTML separated out instead of being it in a string. All right. Any questions? Any concept that you want me to clarify? Anything before we jump onto the next activity? Yes. What is it? Okay. And what is the error code? Is it 400 something? So refuse connection, usually it means that it's trying to hit that URL, but it's not running, or it's not able to connect to that local host. Is the port number correct? Is the server that you're running is on the same port? Yeah. Usually that's what it means. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Any concept? Does everybody understand how to serve HTML pages? Okay. All right. So just to get some hands-on experience, let's do the next exercise. This is number 5, and this is called serve favorites. Exercise number 5. Okay, so you guys are going to work on exactly the same thing that I showed. It just has more HTML pages. Instead of 1, you're going to have at least 4. All right, 4 HTML pages. You're going to create a route. You're going to create a web server, and then based on the links or the URLs, you're going to show these 4 pages. Okay. You can make it as simple as you want. You can use Bootstrap. I would recommend that so that you guys understand that it's just like any other HTML page, and you should be able to get everything up and running. Okay. At least start with the first 2, but they are kind of similar. Make sure you have some links to go back to the home page, like I had like a href, so that you can go back to the home page. Show these 3 more HTML pages. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my activity that I did so that you guys can see the code if you want any reference. Okay, you'll be using the FS module, similar thing that I did. Instead of one, you're going to create more than one HTML and then route them accordingly. Okay. We'll take 15-20 minutes on this one, and then I'll jump onto the post one. I'm not going to solve this one. It's very similar to what I have already done, which is this is number 5, serve favorites. Okay, it just has more than one HTML. That's the only difference.
was on the router.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. So,
So it's really just that. If you test them all manually,
this is this is for so it is getting the photo. Okay.
yeah, /food it runs the function. Oh. Oh, what? So the on your index HTML, like if you go back to your index HTML file, is that the issue because it's running on localhost? So the pathway is going to be localhost 80//. Like to run the request again? Is that right?
Or if you go down the same.
There we go. Yeah.
Do you know what the issue is?
Well, like looking for a.
Yeah, looking for it's it has server side looking for slide. Make it not so it's looking for
That. It's not anything with .html.
No, this is okay. Yeah, this is
Yep. There you go. Same issue. But it's the path is the request URL, right? You need a request and response. Yeah, the path is your request URL. So you want the response to. That. That's it. So far. Right. Oh, that's just like a. That's I was wanting to
like if you go to any website, right, like google.com, you don't say, you just say google.com/ and stops over there. It still shows a page. So that's what it should be doing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is the path name that the URL is / without anything.
So they just go to localhost.
Right.
we were to retype forward slash.
All right, any questions on the routing or anything you guys found interesting or not working? Able to navigate to at least the index or the 2 pages, if not all? All right, so till now we have been looking at what we call GET requests. Yes, Josh, you have a question?
Oh, I sent a link to one of the pages from the homepage. I can't get it to link back.
Um,
Just better look at it.
so do you have a ARF back to the home page? Okay, and it's the same route. Does that route is if you started with slash, like if you have a home page as just forward slash, that's where you're navigating back to, right? There's no home if unless you have a home.html, it's not going to go back. Do you have that? And it's assigned to forward slash, or you have the whole name in your server? Not on your HTML. On your server, do you have it all the time? Right? So it's not going to go back. So you have to just use slash. Okay, because it's going to parse based on exactly what you have over here. So if I do slash home here, then on my HTML, when I have a href, it should be exactly slash home. If you have slash home.html, it's not going to work. Why? It's going to exactly look for this. Unless you do this as .html, then on your front end, you have to put this in your area. Okay. Alright, so all of these routes that we have been looking are part of the HTTP GET routes, right? It's getting some information. The second part is posting or sending some data to the server. Okay, so that's what we're going to take a look at next. And I'm going to go back to my first example and then where I did the GET request. So back in this code, let me go back and put this one up. Okay. So just recapping that, this is the first the string HTML one that I wrote. But the over here is I am creating a server. It's listening on this port, and then when you type in a URL, for example, let's say what do you slash about, it shows me those web pages. Okay, so all of these are GET routes that my client is trying to get something back, and they're trying to get what? HTML. Okay, so I send a HTML back and they render it. Okay, so the next part is post. How do I send the data to the server and then it's able to do something on it? Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a simple example where I'm going to send the data from my client to the server and just do a console log. That's all. That will validate that we are able to receive that data. Okay, now if you're sending the data, it's called a post request. So we're making a post request. All right, so now if I send data from my client to my server, which of these variables is going to have the data inside it? Request, right? Did everybody see that? The data will still be in the request. Why? Because my client is sending something. Okay, so request is an object. It has a lot of stuff in it, but my data would be somewhere over here. Okay, now how do I pull this out in Node.js? Let's add some lines here. Okay, now what we are doing is, again, we are just using the HTTP module that is built into Node.js. Okay, once we get to Express, Express does the same thing. It does do it. It has a wrapper on top of it, makes it more intuitive. Okay, but I'm going to show you how do you do it in vanilla Node.js. Might not have to use it ever, but it's good to know that this is how you do it. Okay, if you're using Express, then you don't have to worry about that. But so the first thing is, remember Firebase? We were tapping into some events, right? Firebase had an event called on, or your click events. They are based on the on event, right? It's the same thing over here. Yes. Wrapper. Um, for example, jQuery. jQuery is a wrapper. Why? It has JavaScript behind it, and they have written some code on top of JavaScript. So it's like wrapping up JavaScript. That's what it's called, a wrapper. So when I say Express is a wrapper, this means that beneath it there is Node.js code, and they have written some function on top of it, like kind of creating a wrapper on it.
So then what is the difference between a library and a wrapper?
Both are the same thing.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. All right. So similar to Firebase and our click functions, we have to tap into the event, and the event is called same thing dot on event. Okay. So Node.js also has a event called on, and this event is part of this object over here, request. Okay. Now, as an event, the first parameter is what type of event it is, right? Click event in Firebase, we had child added event or added event and all those stuff. Similarly, over here, the event is called data. Okay. This event is fired as the data comes into my server. Okay. Every time you send a post request to your server, this is the event that is listening for that data. Okay. This thing you cannot change, it has to be data. Remember, even in Firebase on your click events, the first is part of your framework or library, and they are kind of defining it. Okay, so the on event, what is the event? It's called data. And then the second parameter is callback function, right? Any other events that we've been looking at, all of them have callback functions. So it's same as your jQuery.on event, or if you go to Firebase, same thing over here. Okay. All right. This event is going to have the data that is coming into your server. Okay. Now, the little bit more tricky thing is this event is being fired every time some data comes into your server. Okay. Now, we know from our knowledge that the data is not coming as strings or numbers, right? It's coming as bits and bytes, right? So what happens is as those bytes keep coming into your server, they're coming in chunks, right? We know how the network works. When you send a request, it's converted into bits and bytes, and then it kind of comes to your server. Okay, so this is the exact same that's happening. So your data, this variable, it's going to have chunks of data. Right? We don't have to worry about how the chunks are or what's going on. The only thing we need to understand is that this thing is going to keep firing as the data is coming into my server. And the data is not intermittent, but it's kind of broken down, and then it's sent over network. So what we need to do is we need to collect all that data before we say, all right, I'm done. I have received everything that the client is trying to send. Okay, so in that case, you will see how do we combine chunks of data. Basically, we are using string concatenation. So let's say create a variable string data, call it string. All I have to do is request data plus equal to data. Okay. Again, it's even if you console log, you might not see this. Node.js kind of handles it on the back end, but this is required because we understand that the data that we are receiving is going to be in chunks, right? It's going to be broken down into bytes, whatever the mechanism is, and then it's going to keep sending all the data to your server, right? What this is assuring is that as the data is coming in chunks, I'm trying to add it and make a complete string. Okay. And this will keep going on until the data ends coming in. Okay, now how do I know that the data has ended, there's no more data? There's an event for that as well. It's called on, and the event is called end. Okay, so we can change the second event here as well. Let me show you. So there's another event dot on, right? And this is called end, and same thing, callback function. All right, let's do a console log saying received all data, and then just console log request data. Okay, this event signifies that the server has received all the data, and then what is that final data? It would be in this string. Why? Because I'm kind of adding this into chunks, making sure everything is over there. Now, how Node.js does it behind the scene, we don't have to worry about it. The only thing we have to worry about is what are the events that are telling me what's going on. Okay, the first event is the data, and this event gets fired every time your server receives data. All right, receives a post request, not the get one. This does not fire if you send a get request. This is only being fired if you send a post request. For now, fires in your update also and delete also, but not on get. Okay, so whenever I send a post request which has some data in it, this event gets fired. Right, when that post data is ended, Node.js is keeping track of it. It knows when the stream of data stops coming in, it will fire this, and this is, we would be 100% sure that we have received all the data. Okay, once we have received, where's my response? Let's just end our response. Don't send anything back. Since this is the post request, I'm receiving the data and I'm going to console log it on my server. Don't have to send anything back. So that's why just an empty string, empty end. Okay. All right. Any questions? So this is for post request. We have seen the request so far. We have seen get request. Okay. This is a post request, and a post request is going to have some data coming from the client side. Doesn't matter. It's going to be a string, number. Usually it's a JSON string, but for now it doesn't matter. Okay. It's any data that comes in, and this is the event that you need to tap in. Okay. The other thing is, do you guys understand this? Why do I have dot two ons over here? This is the same as doing okay, it's the same thing as doing this. Okay, so instead of writing this in two different lines, it's the same thing. What we call this is chaining the events, right? These events are part of the same object. So instead of doing it like this, what I did was I just chained them together. They're going to be fired accordingly, whichever event gets fired. Okay, so this is, if you didn't know the term, it's called chaining events. Chaining events. Okay, but both of them will work. Either you can do it separately or like this, it doesn't matter. It's just a shorter syntax. That's all it is. Okay. All right. Any questions before I run this and show you how to actually send the data to my server? Okay. Now there's I would add one more event. There's an event for error as well, and it's kind of useful to add that as well. Same thing. Dot on, right? And this is called, event is called error. So this is good that if there's any error that happens when you are trying to post, you can actually see what happened. So oops. So let's just console error and see if any error occurs. Oops. Okay, again, the last one is optional. You don't have to do it. Ooh, did I miss something? Dot on. I'm missing a parenthesis, right? Or do I have an extra one? Okay. So these are the three events that kind of go hand in hand together if you're doing a post request. Okay. Um, post request. Okay. Now, when you type in the URL on your, let's go ahead and run this. And okay, so when you go to the browser and you type in localhost and run this, what happens? This is a GET request. Okay, your browser by default do a GET request. Okay, and that's the only request they do. If you type in any URL on the top and press enter, this is actually making a GET request. Okay, right. So if you want to test a post request, you need something else. Right, we cannot test a post request in our browser. If you type it, so I have the same URL, but I cannot send data. I don't have any option over here right now. You can do it through HTML, we'll do it in the next exercise. But if you want to test a post endpoint or a post request, there's a tool called Postman, and I would highly recommend downloading it and start using it. This is almost every place I have worked, they always use. This is an open source free tool, and everybody kind of uses this tool. It's called Postman. Okay, what this tool allows us is you can make all kind of requests over here. You see it has get, post, put, patch, delete, copy, head, option, link, unlink. All of these are HTTP requests. We're not going to cover, and I haven't even used some of these, so I don't even know what these do. But the top 5 ones, these are more popular ones, and they are being used a lot. Okay, so you can pick what you are trying to do. I'm trying to do a post, right? I'm trying to, this is my address, okay? And then I'm trying to send some data to it. So if you go to the body tag, and then this is coming from my client, okay? In this case, Postman, this is my client, right? Why? Because I'm calling my server through my Postman. Okay, I'm sending a request to my server using Postman, so this is my client. Okay, so if this is successful, I should get a string. The string should say this, and it should go ahead and console log on my server. Again, why? Because am I console logging? Yeah, I'm console logging. Okay, so send this request, and then we see this received all data, and this is coming from my client. Yes. How did I what? Oh, on my computer? I have it installed though. So I did a control space and it pops up the spotlight search, and then but you have to have it installed though. Okay, let me do this maybe one more. So if you hit this plus sign, a request comes in, it's empty, right? This is what Postman usually shows. So select post, put in your HTTP localhost 8080. I want to send some data. Go into your body tag here. Let's select raw. Okay, and then this is another request. Okay, and then you see the other one is coming because I have a get request as well. I'll have to comment that out. But the point is that this is how you would send some data back to your server, and it's going to receive that data. So I'm getting this string now. I can do anything with this. Yeah, you can put in a JSON object also. Name some name. Okay, so you can send the JSON as well. It doesn't matter. Your server is still going to receive it. And then you can parse it as a JSON and do all that stuff. We'll take a look at it later on. But the more important point is how do you make a post request? These are the events. Okay, Handle request, same function. Uh, two possible events, request.onData, and then end. And then this is optional. Make sure you have an error, so if something happens, you at least know what's going on. Okay? Any questions? So we have looked at get and we have looked at post. Okay? The next activity is going to be on post, and you're going to post data from your HTML now. Okay? I've intentionally not showed you how to do that from your HTML. Okay? I want you guys spend a half an hour, try to figure that exercise out. Now, the hint is, remember your HTML forms. Go back to your HTML forms, look up the documentation. W3 school, doesn't matter. In the forms, remember there was a action property and a method property. And it had method property, usually had like a post over there. Okay? That is what you have to do. That's, remember before week 3, week 4, I said we are going to come back to those two attributes. This is the time. Okay? Look up the documentation and see what the form is doing with action and method as post. Okay? That's how you would have to post data, send data from your HTML to your server. Okay? There's no JavaScript involved in this exercise. All right? Just HTML. You can do it in JavaScript, but we'll take a look at it next time. For now, just create an HTML page which is going to post some data. Okay? So, let's see. This is activity number 7. Okay, so this activity takes it everything starting from get request, creates a post request, a whole like a website which does both things. Okay, now how do we post it? I would recommend using a form. Look at HTML form, create a form. Okay, and then see how can you use post method to post that data from your form, from your HTML form on your server. On your server side, you can just do a just console log that data so that you know it's showing up. Okay, so create an HTML file, put a form inside it. You can use Bootstrap, use HTML form, maybe name, address, or whatever two fields. Okay, and then use the action and method in HTML form to post the data to your server. Okay, you still have to create the server.js. All your servers should be running, and then it should be able to post it. Okay, take some time, see if you can figure out, and I'll solve this exercise towards the end. This is number. You can use this as an example if you're looking for a template. You can create something like this. The more important is these two fields. This is the form, okay, and the submit button. So if you're looking for what do I do, you can create something similar to that. Jumbotron, just two input boxes. Okay, when you click submit, your server should be console logging that data. It should show up on your server code. Okay, and this is using form with post. Let's see, form HTML. Okay, this is what I'm saying. Something like this. So go through the documentation and make that post request. and you're trying to send the data that anybody enters over here and here. Let me bring back the code for the post so that you guys can see the example that I just did. Okay, this is your post request. Let's do this. Move this to what's the shortcut to move these lines up? Was it Option up? Alt? Yeah. Thank you. This is console log the data as when you receive it. So just do this. Now, in your case, in the end right now, I'm not sending anything back. You can send a HTML back saying, oh, thank you for entering something, so that they can see what they have entered. That is also fine. Empty, doesn't matter. Just make sure you console log that information.
Right, yeah.
Just creating a index HTML with a form, and then completing that GET request when it comes up. So, give this a column. Right. Center this
So it doesn't want, yeah, it's
form.
that's why it's
I'm just going to copy this from our W3 schools. So form, we'll come back and fill this out. Okay, a simple form with these two things. Let's go back and see if this runs and it showed me a form. Oh. Okay, let's go back to our local host. Oh no, it's not working. Display root page is not defined. Oh, it's called display root. Oh no, FS is not defined. Come on. FS require. Oh, okay, there we go. Alright, so all I did was just create an index file with a Jumbotron and a form. And I copied this form from here. Haven't filled out these two things. Okay, so this basically shows me simple form.
Right. Well, and it should kind of automatically, right?
So if you see the slash over here, this is the get route. If I want to create a post, I have to create another path or another route. Okay, so that would be another case. Basically, I need a route for my post request also. So I can say case, um, let's call it post data. I don't like it, but let's call it. Okay, so if I'm trying to post any data, this is the URL that I need to access from my front end. And then you can say post data page. Okay, well, this function is not defined yet, so let's stub that out. So, function. Okay, now again, why do I need this? Because when I go to my page, right, slash on the root route, this is what it shows me. It's a form. Okay, but when I click submit, I want to send this data back to my server. Okay, and so for that I need a path, I need a URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send all the data to this path. I mean, it doesn't do anything yet, but that's what my intention is. So when I click the submit button, I'm going to call a route which corresponds to this in my HTML, and then it should give me all the data over here. Okay, so let's complete the same from the previous example. I'm going to use the same two events, but those events are on my request, so I need to pass in the request as well. Just the response won't do, so let's say request. Okay, request. Okay, so the first method request.on, request.on. Okay, and event is data. Okay, this should be called when the data comes in. Let's call it data as well. Okay, same from my previous example. All right, so I have my data coming in, and let's create a variable. Let request data is equal to empty string, and we will just store this data here. Okay, and then let's go ahead and console log so that we can see on our server that we are receiving the data. Okay, data received, and then just say okay. Right, for now just console log it, and once we are done, we want to call our end. So dot on, let's call the end. Okay, callback function doesn't need to have anything, and we will just say for now response dot end as empty. For now we'll just keep it empty. We're just trying to test it out if we can get data from our HTML. Okay, you can add let's go ahead and add error also. Let's keep it consistent. So error, if there's any error, let's go ahead and log that error. If error console.error. Okay, so these are the three events that we just saw. So on my post data, it should fire this, should get all the data, just print it out, and that's all I'm doing. Okay, and this is the route. Now how do I call this route from my HTML? Okay, this is where this comes in. If you look at the documentation, these are the attributes exactly for this reason. Okay, Action has the URL, the page that you're trying to post, and then method is get, post, put, delete, anything that you want. Okay, so forms by HTML kind of comes built into it. Okay, you would have to do this in JavaScript, but forms have this already built in. Okay, for now we won't look at JavaScript, so we will use this. So what do I need to do? Action, and then my URL http /localhost 8080 slash, which one am I trying to access? Post data. Okay, so this is the URL that goes over here. So when you click the submit button, you should be calling form should call this URL, and then what is the method it should use? It should use post. Okay, and then what data is it going to pass? By default, form takes in all the inputs, whatever you have in the input, and submits that. Let's print it out and see what form they're coming in, but make sure, remember these two names, that's how they will come in. So they're going to put the names inside it and then send you as a variable, as a JSON. Okay, so this is how you use a form. This is the two properties of a form that we ignored for the longest time, but when we get to your APIs, when you're trying to post it out, this is how we use it. Okay, action will have the URL and the method that we're trying to do. Okay, if this is good, we should see something. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, let's go back here, and I want so that we can see. Oh no. What is saying? This is not the page. So my this page is firing off. Okay. Let's see. Localhost 8080 is correct. Yes. Localhost 8080 slash post data. Back over here. So looks like it's not finding post data. Any thoughts? Anything that you see that's, I have the URL correct, I have the name correct, and it should have sent this back. So see, it's sending the data back over here. If you look at the URL, I have the name, first name, last name, but my URL is not getting hit. This is not getting hit. Request, post data page. Anybody did this? You guys see any issue? Well, it should. I mean, it should say like an empty page, but I should see something over here because I'm logging this information. That's what I'm trying. Yeah, it should show me like a blank page. That's okay, but I should see something like whatever data that is coming back. So it should say something. I mean, it shouldn't do anything, but it should still give me something back. What if I just do slash post data? Let's see. I don't think that should matter. Oh, it does matter. You see that? Receive data. So since this is running on my, I should have followed the exact, I was trying to be smart. You see over here, they only have slash and the page that it is. Well, we learned something, so don't put localhost over here. Okay, so, and one of the reasons is because your front end and your backend server, they both are on the same location. We'll get to it. Eventually you'll understand what I mean, but they both are on the same server actually. So form action, I'm calling this this endpoint, right? It sends us data, and do you see how it sends the data? it is where the f name is coming from is the label that you're putting over here. Okay, so it says this is equal to whatever the value and last name, and then whatever the last name is. Okay, so that's how the forms work. And then what you eventually you can do is you can parse them into the data that you're looking for. So for full name, this is how it comes in. Okay, so this functionality posting is already built in into HTML forms. Eventually we are going to look in JavaScript, how do we post it from JavaScript, right? $.get, we're going to look at $.post, but the same concept. Okay, so this post route should be defined on your server somewhere. Okay, all right, that's all for today. We'll let me know if you have any questions, and then we are going to look at a little bit of Express and do a small project on Tuesday, building the whole application.